Hey everyone, just wanted to share a few announcements as we enter into Holy Week. I'll be sending out a schedule by email, and you'll be looking for that soon, hopefully, for our Holy Week schedule. This week we have our last session of our Embracing the Uncertain Bible study. So that's on Wednesday at 7. And then we'll be partnering with the Rural Retreat Lutheran Parish to do our Holy Week services. We'll have Maundy Thursday service at 7, and that's outside. We'll have a Good Friday service at 7, and that's outside at Grace as well. And then on Easter Sunday, we'll be having 3 services. So one of those will be outside at St. Paul Lutheran, and I'll be preaching at that one. And then we'll have 2 indoor services at the church inside the sanctuary, both at 9 and 11. So anyways, we have a very busy week coming up. Really looking forward to being busy and looking forward to being back with you all. So anyways, if you have any announcements you'd like to add, please send those to me. Any concerns for the prayer list that need to go on there, please send those as well. But anyways, really looking forward to seeing you all this week. Thanks. Today's gospel lesson for Palm Sunday is from Mark chapter 11, verses 1 through 11. When Jesus and his followers approached Jerusalem, they came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives. Jesus gave 2 disciples a task, saying to them, "Go into the village over there, and as soon as you enter it, you will find tied up there a colt that no one has ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' say its master needs it, and he will send it back right away." They went out and found a colt tied to a gate outside on the street, and they untied it. And some people standing around said to them, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They told them just what Jesus said, and they left them alone. They brought the colt to Jesus and threw their clothes upon it, and he sat on it. And many people spread out their clothes on the road, while others spread branches cut out from the fields. Those in front of him and those following were shouting, "Hosanna! Blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessings on the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest." Jesus entered into Jerusalem and went into the temple, and after he looked around at everything, because it was already late in the evening, he returned to Bethany with the 12. You know, a parade is meant to be a grand occasion. You know, think of the Macy's Day Parade as it marches through New York City with thousands watching from the streets and millions watching from home. Think of the 1940s when the World War ended and people welcomed home men and women who had been away for years and cried tears of joy as they hugged the family they feared they would never see again. You know, most of the time, during big parades, celebrities and politicians and athletes, they ride on floats, waving through town to cheers and confetti. A parade is meant to be a celebration enjoyed by many to honor a person, to honor a moment, to honor some achievement. It's a way for thousands to join in on the fun. In my hometown of Blountville, they love parades, but they haven't quite mastered how to throw one. Instead of floats, they pull trailers of hay with tractors down the main street with kids waving along the way. In the high school band, they march along, playing as they walk, but Joey's tuba is clogged because an overeager kid threw a Tootsie Roll down the pipe. And a town councilman drives his convertible down the main street, shouting, "He'll defend our rights if we defend his job in November." And there is my dad. He's in the Ruritan Club and the youngest member, and he needs me to walk with them holding their banner because the other members can't keep the pace of walking down the road for a mile. When Kristen and I were still dating, Kristen came down to Blountville on the 4th of July, and my parents insisted that we go to the Blountville 4th of July parade. And Kristen likes parades, but she's from a city of 300,000 where parades mean actual floats and actual dignitaries, and I knew going in that her expectations were way too high. Compared to the glitz of Grand Rapids, the Blountville parade seemed like it was impromptu and planned at the last minute. It was more of a walk down Main Street with some people on the sidewalk clapping for their kids, throwing candy to others as they go by. As we begin Holy Week, the story starts with a parade like the one in Blountville. There is no planning, no floats, no candy, just people covering the rough spots in the road with their clothes and cutting palm branches from the trees and waving them frantically while shouting Hosanna. Finally, at this spur-of-the-moment Blountville-style parade, it has happened. Jesus is no longer seen as a nuisance, but has finally been recognized as the king he rightfully is. Just this once, the people and the disciples have gotten something right. But in this parade, Jesus has thrown in a little surprise. In the first 7 verses, Jesus asked his disciples to go borrow a donkey. Now they do as he says, and so in this parade where Jesus is being celebrated as a king, he rides in on a lowly and humble donkey. Now I'm not usually one for symbolism, but in this case, symbolism is important. A donkey, even in that time, was a beast of burden, something so lowly that its only use was pulling a cart. A donkey was not a proper way for Jesus to get around. You see, when we watch kings in movies or on TV, they travel in style. They dress to the nines in Gucci and Armani to symbolize their power. If the Hallmark Channel were to make a movie about royalty, they would never show a king riding a donkey, because a donkey doesn't portray power and strength. But then again, the quirky truth about Jesus is that he is a humble king. Instead of being served by others, Jesus goes among people and serves them. Instead of being high and mighty, he is lowly and modest. And instead of sitting on a throne, he ruled from a cross and suffered for our sake. The peculiar truth about Jesus is he knew that the joyous hosannas would soon change to shouts for his crucifixion. And yet he carried on. He's the perfect and humble king who chose to love us even when our shouts of love were hollow. You know, a few years ago, I decided to bake my own bread for communion. And I spent half a Saturday baking some fancy loaf of bread from Pinterest. And when I pulled it out of the oven, it looked good, so I just, put it on the altar for communion. And when it came time for me to break the bread, I lifted it up. And it was so tough that as I was tearing it, my arms began to shake. And the whole congregation laughed. I should have been better prepared for that moment. I should have practiced baking bread before using it at communion. But even though I failed as a baker, Christ was present in that moment of communion just as he is present in moments of communion when everything goes right, when all goes as planned. Friends, our passage today is a reminder that that even when our shouts of Hosanna, our shouts of joy are hollow, even when our best laid plans fail, Christ still finds a way. Christ still comes among us. And on this Holy Week, where we're re-emerging, I think that this is a much needed reminder that Christ has been present this entire time. That nothing can stop the Holy of Holies, the Christ who sacrificed and was resurrected on our behalf to come among us, to save us, to show us mercy. As we begin the story of Easter once again, that is the point that we need to start from. That is the joy that needs to be remembered. Amen.